this day. And as I was preparing for this message, and I was, searching scriptures, getting ready, I was thinking, okay, what is it, God, that you want me to preach from? What passage of scripture do you want me to go to? And thinking through what was happening through Young Venture and this past weekend, the healing services, I'm pumped up. I'm just ready. I'm going. But the Lord dropped this passage in my heart a few weeks ago, and it just sticks with you. It stuck with me. And how many of you guys know that certain passages become anchors during seasons? You guys know what I'm talking about? That certain passages, they get you through different seasons because of the power of those words, because of what God's Spirit is saying to you through those words. And this passage is so familiar. We've heard it so many times, and yet I kept going back to it. I kept going back. And this passage is one of those anchor passages for me. For me and Lydia during different seasons in her life, this is one we just kept going back to. It's one of those anchors you just hold on to for dear life to say, you know what, God? You are who you say you are. And I believe that you still keep your promises and you are still good. So today we're going to talk about trusting the Lord. And the title of the message today is Our Compass. God is our compass, that He directs us and He leads us where we need to go. The passage, as you all know, is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. And say it with me if you don't mind. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. Father, again, thank you for this morning. Thank you for your word. For your word is living and active. And we know that today in our hearts, God, we receive and position ourselves to hear from you this morning. We love you and we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen. So this passage, heard it so many times. I'm sure maybe you have maybe a picture frame that has this passage on it, or some sort of decorum or decorations in your house. Lydia has put this on a painting in my office, this verse, because it is such an anchor passage. It's one of those that you hold on to. So what we're going to do this morning, we're just going to walk through it. And I believe, I don't know why I kept going back to this passage, but I believe that God has something specific for us today with this very familiar passage. To trust in the Lord with all our hearts, to lean on not what we know, lean on Him. And in every way to submit to Him. And here comes the promise that He's going to direct our paths, to make our paths straight. So we're going to look at this, we're going to just take it line by line, we're going to go through it. And I believe that God has something for us this morning with it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trusting in someone means that you put your confidence in them. It means that there's a relationship back and forth, that you give control over to that person. Trusting in the Lord identifies that the Lord is above all else. What is it that we see on our currency, on our dollars and our cents? We see in God we trust. On our currencies, where even right there it says, you know what? It's not anyone else. It's in God that we trust. Trusting in someone means that you give control over. You give control. You're in the passenger seat. You're in the passenger seat. Can you imagine a relationship built on trust where there is not the same access maybe to the checkbook, or the same access to different things in our life where there's trust to be built? I think my favorite picture of trust is that group of acrobats. How many of you guys remember going to the circus as a kid? Going to the circus or taking your son or daughter, going to the circuses are not really out anymore. But I remember one time growing up, my favorite act was the acrobats. To see them twirl in the air, to see them go from kind of pole to pole. And sometimes when it was really, really crazy, they would take the net out from the bottom. And they would have this so synchronized, so practiced and rehearsed, that as they jumped from one bar to another, that other person that was about to catch them, there was such a trust between them. One split second difference or one slip could be dangerous, could be fatal. Trust means that you give control over, and as you transition, as you move, you depend on them. But here comes the tricky part with this passage we've all heard. Trust in the Lord with what? All your heart. With everything. With every bit of your being, with every part of your soul, everything about you, you trust in the Lord. You give control to that one who's going to catch you on the other side of the bars. A couple days ago, I went to the dentist. How many of you guys actually like going to the dentist? It's just one of those things. A couple weeks ago, I got the x-rays done. I was just, getting the checkups and making sure there wasn't any cavities, and there was some. So last week, I got one cavity filled, no problem. It's one of these, front teeth. And then he said, well, Joe, you got some way in the back here. And if you guys remember getting the cavities filled, they get this shot thing going. Yeah, and they get this huge syringe, and they position it to inflict the most amount of pain possible. So you're going through, and he's like, okay, it's no big deal, you can do it. Last week was no problem, right in the gum, boom, done. But now it's way in the back. So he's got the syringe, and he said, okay, now I'm sorry, this is really going to pinch. This is going to hurt. So I'm looking around. Conveniently, I have a Thor superhero shirt on. I'm sitting in a dentist chair with a superhero shirt on, and I'm thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. So he's going, the dental assistant's over here, and you got these sunglasses on. It's almost like to block your tears to come out. But as he's getting the syringe in, he goes back, and then he has to do it again in a different spot, because it's way back there. It's those wisdom teeth. So he's doing it. It is one of the most painful things I have gone through. So you do it, and you're gripping the chair. You have these white knuckles. You're gripping something. And then he's like, okay, we're almost done. And as he's finishing, literally tears are going down my face. And I'm like, no, I'm wearing a Thor shirt. I'm just, men don't cry in the dentist chair. That doesn't happen. He leaves. He's like, okay, you're going to be numb for a while. And you feel like your jaw is going to go down in your lap, But all the while, the dentist assistant sees me wiping my eyes. She's like, oh, he made you cry. You know what? Let's get this done. As I was just kind of laying there, letting all that medicine affect me, I'm like, this is like a walk with God sometimes. You have to trust that dentist to finish what he's going to do. That you can't operate, you can't, fill a cavity on yourself. You can't do those types of things on your own. You have to allow the dentist to do it. You have to sit in the chair and allow him to perform what he needs to do. There's going to be moments where there's pain. There's going to be moments of discomfort. And there's going to be moments where you're going to say, I want to get out of this chair right now. Get out of my face. I don't want any more syringes. But to be whole, but to grow and to develop, you have to allow the dentist to work on you. Trusting in the Lord with all your heart means that you give control over, and you sit in the chair. You sit in the chair and you say, God, okay, I don't know maybe what's going on, but I see that you're developing me. I see that you're helping me grow. And as I trust in you, I'm trusting through this process that you are going to be with me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Here comes the hardest part, I think, right here. Lean not on your own understanding. means you're not going to depend on yourself. It's not leaning on what you know, your understanding. It's what you know. It's the most natural thing to do. We believe that we know what is best, and we pick the most logical, the most comfortable decision to take. We say, you know what? Okay, this is what I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to do. Makes sense. And God's saying, you know what? You shouldn't lean on what you know, because I know what's better. It's hard. It's counterintuitive. It's not natural to think, okay, I'm going to depend on God, and I'm going to lean on Him, rather than just saying, you know what? I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I know what to do next. Leaning not on your own understanding, it literally means to rely or to rest upon. Just like I'm resting on this pulpit here, I'm putting my weight on it. So whenever you let go, you're on your own, you're doing your own thing. You're leaning on something, you're depending on that thing, that person, to hold you, to support you. We can just lean, just like we can depend on our bank account, our talents, our abilities, our family, our knowledge. Then the question comes to us today, church, what are we leaning on? What are we depending on? Lean not on your own understanding means, you know what? That you don't know all the time what's best. God knows what's best. To lean on Him. Lean on Him and His understanding of what we know. You know what's really interesting to note with this proverb? We heard it so many times. Think about who's writing this proverb. King Solomon, the wisest person to ever walk this planet, is also one of the wealthiest people, from what we could tell from the Bible, that he had just scores of gold and silver and trade and all these different things. He was full of wisdom. And yet he's the one that's saying, don't lean on your own understanding. Don't do it. Lean on God. Well, come on, Solomon. You know what's going on. You have all the degrees. You have all the money in the world. You can rely on your own a little bit. You can lean on your own. Lean not on your own understanding. He of all people could have said, thanks God, but I'm wise enough. I'm smart enough. I know what to do. I'm going to figure out this path of my own. But what Solomon isn't saying in this proverb is that we shouldn't gather knowledge. We should. We should gather knowledge. We should learn. We should grow. We should develop. But when it comes down to it, when the rubber meets the road, we lean on God. Lean not on your own understanding means, yes, you develop. Yes, you grow. But you can lean on God. You depend on Him for what's next. Even with all you've learned and all that you have, all the life experiences, don't make the mistake of thinking that you're wise enough, or you're smart enough, or cool enough, or slick enough, or careful enough to lean on your own understanding. Even with all of Solomon's vast wisdom and wealth and experience, he still refused to lean on his own understanding. He leaned on God. Our first point here, church, is welcome God's path. To trust in the Lord, to allow Him to be our compass, we have to welcome His path. Whenever we're leaning on God and not ourselves, we embrace His path. We say, oh, you know what? God, I don't know what's best, but I'm going to trust in You. I may not know what is ahead. I may not know the future, but I'm going to lean on You. And as I trust in You with all my heart, and in every way I submit to You, I acknowledge You, make my path straight. That's the promise of this proverb. Leaning not on your own understanding, though, requires humility. That's not hard. There's some things that come through our life that say, you know what? You don't know everything. You say, well, this is what I know. This is what I experienced. But to walk in humility says, I still got some stuff to learn. Pastor talks about all the time that we are still in the schoolhouse of God, meaning we're still students. We never stop learning through our walk with God. Sometimes we can say, okay, where I reached this point in my faith, or I've reached this moment, I feel like I'm good, God. I don't need to grow anymore. I don't need to develop anymore. And we can get into some really dangerous territory there. If we walk in humility, we walk to say, you know what, I still have things to learn. I still want to lean on you, God, and not lean on my own understanding. It takes humility. I don't know where you're taking me, God, sometimes, but I trust in you, and I believe that you know what's best. There's a sign, a road sign, that comes up all the time. And some people, you go through this sign, and a lot of people, they forget that this sign is here. It's this road sign. You can go ahead and pull it up. Yield sign. How many of you guys have been at an intersection where the person is supposed to yield and they don't yield? You have been there before? Sometimes at 14 and 59 right by the get-go, and you're yielding, you're going on to 59, there's people turning left, and some people just don't yield. They don't do it. And they can cause some pretty serious headaches. You definitely hear the hallelujah honking of the horns, and you hear people say things that I don't want to hear that. But this yield sign is something that that shows exactly what we're talking about. What does the word yield mean? Does anybody know? Give person the right of way, to give way, right? So teenagers in the back, you guys are learning how to drive. Yield sign, very important. To learn to give the right of way, that as you're entering into that lane of traffic, you don't have the right of way. That oncoming traffic does. You got to wait, slow down, give the right of way to them. Lydia and I, we were on a date when we were in college. And I grew up in St. Louis. I don't know if you knew that. I grew up in St. Louis, and I love my St. Louis Cardinals. They're my favorite team. I still root for your Indians, though. I like your Indians. But I love my St. Louis Cardinals, and Lydia and I went downtown for a date, and we went to the Arch. They have a really nice park in the Arch area, the Arch grounds downtown. As we're going, we're kind of moving around downtown, and we're leaving, we're trying to get back on the interstate. And as I'm turning, I'm pretty confident. I know where I'm going. Guys, you know what I'm talking about. You're confident in where you're going, but you don't want to tell your wife, your girlfriend. You may have a little doubt. You may not be sure that this is the right turn. So that's where I was at. You're playing it smooth. Nice date, everything went well. Okay, let's go home. Let's finish what we're doing. And we're going, and we're leaving downtown, going into the interstate, and I turn right, and I miss a sign. I miss one of those signs. It's very important, especially maybe in downtown Akron with all the construction. That one-way sign. Yeah? You know what I'm talking about? So we turn, and it's not until I hear Lydia screaming that I know that I turned onto a wrong road and onto 5 lanes of traffic coming our way. Downtown St. Louis. We had maybe a couple seconds, slam the brakes, turn around, luckily escaped a head-on collision. But you're trying to be Captain Smooth, you're trying to be all smooth, and you're like, you know where you're going. You turn and you miss a sign. Many times in our life, church, we can miss the signs that God is pointing us toward, like this yield sign. To give the right of way to Him. To say, you know what, I have these markers laid out in your journey. Don't miss them. Don't miss where I'm taking you. Because if you do, there might be catastrophe. There might be something that I need to correct you on. To give way to God's way. That's what yielding means. That's what submission means. Yielding to Him. Look at this passage with me, Isaiah chapter 55. This is what God says as far as His ways compared to our ways. Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, my thoughts than your thoughts. That says it all right there. Hey, God's way is up here, my way is down here. I want to yield and I want to come into God's way. If I'm trusting in Him with all my heart and I'm not leaning on what I know, I want to merge into God's lane and I want to do it His way. His way is so much better. And yet we say, well, God, here's what I'm at. Here's what's going on. He said, I know what you're going through. Go my way. Some of us, church, we've been doing it our own way for so long that whenever it comes to this yield sign, we don't want to submit. But like I said before, it takes some humility to say, you know what? I may not know what's best, God. I may not know what you're doing and what's going on, but I want to follow after you. And that's what it takes. To say, you know what? I'm going to yield to you and I'm going to submit to you. And that's where we get to verse 6 of Proverbs chapter 3. In every way, in all your ways, acknowledge Him. He will direct your paths. Direction, here's the next point here. Direction begins with embracing God's will. Direction begins with embracing God's will. You want some direction? You want some wisdom as far as what the future is or what's going to happen in our life? It begins with saying, God, your way, not my way. It starts with yielding your right, to give the right of way to God, to merge into His lane, and say, God, I want to do it your way. That's where it starts. Direction begins with embracing God's will. Church, this is a theme all throughout Scripture, all throughout the Old Testament, that whenever people didn't know where to go, and they leaned on God, God showed them what to do. They didn't understand where God was leading them, but they trusted in Him. Think of stories like Moses helping him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Think of especially Abraham, where God called him to go, to get up, leave everything that he knew, and to go to a new country. There's so many stories in the Bible that give us of ordinary people who trusted in God for the next step and leaned not on their understanding, but on His. How do we do this, though? Whenever it comes to submitting to God, acknowledging God, yielding to Him, what does this look like? How do we do it? Verse 6, in all your ways, acknowledge Him. The NIV has it submit to Him, which I think is a little stronger. The Hebrew word there is yada, which means literally to know. But I think in this passage, the NIV has it right, that it's a stronger encouragement to submit to Him. Yes, to acknowledge Him in every way, but also to submit to His way. This is where God reveals the path. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. In every way, God, I surrender to you. In my finances, in my career, in my future, in my family, in my friends, I submit to you. Every walk, every path of my life, I submit to you. In all your ways, submit to Him. And then the promise is that He will make your paths straight. Let me ask you this, church. Who was it that taught you how to drive? How many of you was it your dad? How many of you was it your mom? How many of you was somebody else? Interesting. For me, it was my mom. And God bless her. There were some times I was learning how to drive. And there were some interesting moments. I learned how to drive on a 1993 Lumina, Chevy Lumina, and it was a little sedan, and it had some really good pickup though. A nice V6 engine. Whenever you went on the accelerator, it went. This little tiny sedan. So she taught me how to drive in a Walgreens parking lot. And we're learning. And how many guys, this is you, you're in the passenger seat and you're pumping an imaginary brake. Does anybody else do that? Yeah? you're pumping that imaginary brake. Your foot is like slamming against the floorboard. Or you're holding some sort of handle and you're like, okay, this is too fast, this is too fast. That was my mom at some point. She's like, okay. She calls me Joe. All right, Joe, slow it down. This is really good pickup. I'm going 40, already. It's like, all right, slow down, this is the parking lot. I'm like, okay, well, when do I learn how to go on the interstate? Not for a long time. But a lot of us, that's the picture. We're in that passenger seat, and we're pumping that imaginary brake. We're saying, okay, God, whoa. I don't like where we're going. I don't like the speed where we're going. I don't like the direction where we're going. And he's looking at us, and we're punching, we're kind of holding on and stuff, and he's like, trust me. I know where I'm going. So many of us, we can be that person in that passenger seat that says, okay, I don't know what's going on, and I don't like it. But to trust the driver, to trust who God is. Trust in the Lord with all of our heart. Lean not on our own understanding. Trust in Him with everything. Our little girl, Lizzie, our youngest, who's 2, she's the firecracker in our house. She is running all around. She's just learning, to talk, and it's just it's a bonanza sometimes. It's a lot of fun. But she is also one of those that is a daredevil. You guys know that park on Chestnut Street? We call it the Castle Park. We went there a little while ago, and little Lizzie wants to go on the big kid side. Okay, there's not many kids over here. We'll do it for a little bit. Where does she want to go? To the tallest slide, all by herself. Okay, that's fine. And it's interesting, as she went up, she said, no, I do myself. I do it myself. That's how she said it. I'm going to do it myself. I said, okay. But as she's going up, she's reaching back. She wants to know I'm there. And that's our walk with God, church. Before we make the slide, remember we go down the slide, we want to know that God is there, but we also want to do it ourselves. Guys, God sometimes gives us the space, and sometimes He says, you need to hold my hand through this. There's going to be moments in our walk, church, in our journey, where we want to do it all on our own. And He may allow us. His promise is that He's always with us. He'll never leave us nor forsake us, but sometimes He allows us to go on our path so that whenever things don't work out, we're going to have to realize, I need to go back to Him. I need to yield my path back to Him. I need to surrender my way back to Him. My hope for this message, church, is not that you'll say, I know this passage, to trust in the Lord, to lean not on my understanding. I know that. I've heard it. But my hope for this message for you, church, is that you realize again who God is. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. The God, the creator of the universe. Where is He leading me? Where is God taking me? I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand why am I experiencing this or that. Why won't He tell me what's going on? I think the best picture of this is from Jeremiah chapter 18. We'll come over here. It's the potter and the clay. If you guys remember that story. Turn your Bible real quick over there to Jeremiah chapter 18. I think it's the perfect picture when it comes to trusting in God. Trusting in the Lord with all our heart. Jeremiah chapter 18. It says this. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Go down to the potter's house, and there I will give you my message. So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. It was marred. It was broken. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as it seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to me. He said, "Can I not do with you, Israel, as this potter does, declares the Lord? Like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, Israel." Whenever we talk about the potter and the clay, we have that beautiful picture that God is forming us and shaping us and developing us. And the best way I know how to show that is through Play-Doh. Of course, there's Play-Doh everywhere in our house right now. All kinds of colors. There's glitter Play-Doh. There's pink. Lots of pink. There's pink everywhere. So we have the Play-Doh, and the picture is that God is forming us and shaping us. Has anybody actually seen a potter making a real clay? It's just amazing how they're doing it with the wheel. And sometimes the potter will get cuts from different things in his hands. And as he's forming and as he's shaping, the scripture says that it becomes marred in his hands. Marred means broken, destroyed, kind of debilitated. But then he makes it into another pot. The point here, church, is that whenever we're in God's hands, we have to realize that he is shaping us. All the while, he is shaping us. God, whenever I don't know what's going on, I know you're shaping me. Whenever I'm trusting in you and not leaning on what I know, you're shaping me. And God, in every way, as I surrender to you, as I submit myself to you, and as you make my path straight, you, oh God, are shaping me. God, I don't like this. I don't know what's going on. Why is this happening to me? Or why are you making me this way? Why are these things happening? All these why questions. And all the while, God is saying, I'm shaping you. I'm directing you. Allow yourself to be shaped by the potter. How kind of ludicrous does it look whenever you have the clay or the Play-Doh looking at the person forming it and saying, you don't know what you're doing. And the potter's saying, I know exactly what I'm doing. And all the while, as he's shaping us and as he's forming us, maybe he adds different colors, different things into our life. And he starts forming something else. And all the while, the potter forms and shapes the clay as he sees fit. As we surrender our way to him, church, he may shape us. Just like the story with me and the dentist. You might be sitting in the chair right now and experiencing some pain. And all the while, God is working on you. We are never done growing. We are never done learning from him. We are never done being shaped by him into the image of Christ. Because our job, our goal, our purpose is not done until we cross over into glory and to meet him. Can you say amen with that? We are never done learning. Never done. So all the while he's shaping us, there's things going on. There's things that are just not making sense. Trust in the Lord. Oh God, I don't understand finances. I don't understand this. I don't understand what are you doing? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. God, why did you allow this to happen? I'm not sure. Why? Are you still in control? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. Because he sees everything. He sees how he's shaping us and forming us into being the men and women of God that he wants us to be. Church, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect until we reach heaven, until we reach glory. until we move forward, we transition into our glorious body, we say, okay, I am here, it is done. But God is the potter and we are the clay. And sometimes we can get so mad at God. God, why is this happening? What's going on? And sometimes we have to look at that picture. We are the clay. God is in control. He is the potter. And though I may not understand what's going on in my life, I may not understand what's happening, He's still in control. Amen? Amen. He's still in control. He still is the potter. To trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean on your own understanding, and to yield, to submit your way, every way, submit it to Him. He's going to make your path straight. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be obstacles, but God's way is the best way. God's path is the best path. There was a time for Lydia and I that we were out of ministry, on the bench, as it were, in between ministry positions, and what I thought would be a few months turned into 10 months. And I worked at Chick-fil-A, and I held down different jobs, and all the while I knew, even though I'm like, God, I don't want this right now, I don't understand, I knew that God was shaping me. I knew that God was doing and working into my heart. Even though I wanted, God, just give me a position, give me a job right away. That wasn't His plan. Sometimes His plan is not what we think it may be, but to trust in Him with all of our heart. God is shaping us, leading us, making our path straight as we trust in Him. As we lean on Him, as we acknowledge and submit to Him, He's going to make our path straight. So would you bow your heads and close your eyes with me this morning? Again, I'm not sure why this passage came into my heart, but I know that maybe somebody this morning needs to hear direction, needs to know that God is still in control, needs to know that He is still our Maker. He's still the potter who's shaping us. So church, maybe today you may say, I just need direction. I just need wisdom. I just need to know that He's still in control. As the worship team begins to play and sing, I would just invite you, come to the front. Our prayer team will be with you and support you. But God is working on hearts right now. And I know that maybe even some right now are asking God for something very specific. Asking God, I need to know what the next step is. I need wisdom. I need direction. What's the next step? Church, God is still a good God. He loves you. And even through the roller coaster of life, He's still directing you. And maybe today is a perfect day for you to come forward to pray. Seek God. God, I don't want to lean on my own understanding anymore. I want to lean on You. I want it to be Your way now, not my way. So I'm going to pray for you. And I encourage you guys, if you need wisdom, if you need direction, maybe you need to submit to His path again, I invite you, come forward. Pray. Father, thank You again for this morning. Thank You that You are in control. Thank You that You are the potter and we are the clay. Lord, as we trust in You with all our hearts and we lean on You and not our own understanding, and in every way that we submit to You, acknowledge You, Lord, I pray that You would make our path straight. I pray for those that need wisdom. I pray that You would give it generously, Lord. I pray for those that need encouragement, that need to know that there is still hope. I pray, God, that You would lavish that upon them. That you still are a good God. You still are in control. Father, I pray for everybody here tonight, this morning, that you are going to reach hearts. You are still in control. Father, be with us this morning. Pray in Jesus' name. Can everybody stand with me this morning? Again, if you feel like you need prayer, please come forward. Our prayer team will be with you. But let's sing a chorus, worship team, and let's just worship Him. He loves you, church. He wants to give you direction. So let's make this place of worship. If you need prayer, please come forward. We'll pray with you.
Hey, Pastor Joe, when you get a minute,